Anne Boleyn, was she innocent or adulteress? Unraveling the Tudor trial that shocked the world and the Tower of London. A chilling symbol of power, betrayal, and ultimate demise. For Anne Boleyn, Queen of England, this fortress became her final prison, the stage for one of history's most sensational and perplexing trials. Was Anne Boleyn truly guilty of the heinous charges of adultery, incest, and treason that led to her swift execution in May 1536? Or was she an innocent victim, framed by a ruthless king and his cunning minister, eager to pave the way for a new queen? Centuries later, the core debate rages on, captivating historians, novelists, and filmmakers alike. While the prevailing consensus leans heavily towards her innocence, the intricate web of political maneuvering, personal desires, and legal irregularities of the Tudor era leaves just enough ambiguity to fuel endless fascination. Join us as we delve into the evidence, the accusations, and the lasting legacy of Anne Boleyn's fateful trial. But before we begin, don't forget to like and subscribe to help us grow our channel. The rise and precipitous fall, a queen's unprecedented demise. Anne Boleyn's ascent to the throne was as remarkable as her downfall was sudden and brutal. After years as King Henry VIII's mistress, her unwavering refusal to become his concubine and her demand for marriage propelled Henry to break from the Roman Catholic Church, declare himself supreme head of the Church of England, and annul his marriage to Catherine of Aragon. Crowned queen in 1533, Anne promised Henry the male heir he desperately craved. However, 2 miscarriages and the birth of a daughter, Elizabeth, instead of a son, began to chip away at Henry's affections and patience. His wandering eye had already settled on Jane Seymour, a demure lady-in-waiting who offered the stark opposite to Anne's vivacious, outspoken personality. By early 1536, Henry was desperate for a way out of his marriage to Anne, and his chief minister, Thomas Cromwell, was tasked with finding one. What followed was a swift, brutal, and highly questionable legal process that saw Anne accused of crimes that carried the ultimate penalty. The charges, a web of lies or damning truths. The accusations against Anne Boleyn were, to say the least, shocking. They included adultery with multiple men. She was accused of committing adultery with no fewer than 4 men of the king's privy chamber. Sir Henry Norris, groom of the stool, a close confidant of the king. Sir Francis Weston, a gentleman of the privy chamber. William Brereton, also a gentleman of the privy chamber. Mark Smeaton, a musician in the queen's household. Incest with her own brother. The most scandalous charge, accusing her of having an incestuous relationship with her elder brother, George Boleyn, Lord Rochford. Conspiracy to kill the king, treason. The culmination of the charges, claiming that her adulterous relationships and incest were part of a treasonous plot to usurp the king's authority and potentially even poison him to enable her to marry one of her supposed lovers. These charges were met with disbelief by many, even at the time. The idea of the queen openly engaging in multiple affairs, and especially incest, seemed unfathomable and incredibly risky, particularly given the constant scrutiny of the Tudor court. The evidence, confessions, rumors, and coercion. The prosecution's case relied heavily on a combination of alleged confessions, courtly gossip, and circumstantial evidence. Mark Smeaton's confession. The musician Mark Smeaton was the only one of the accused men to confess to adultery with the queen. His confession, however, was extracted under duress, likely involving torture or the threat of it. Don't forget to like and subscribe to help us grow our channel. He was questioned in Cromwell's house rather than in the Tower, and it's widely believed he was coerced into implicating Anne. Crucially, Smeaton later recanted his confession on the scaffold, though this was largely ignored by the court. The other accused men, Sir Henry Norris, Sir Francis Weston, and William Brereton, all steadfastly maintained their innocence, even in the face of certain death. Their refusal to confess, despite immense pressure, speaks volumes about the dubious nature of the charges. George Boleyn's eloquence. Anne's brother, George, a highly intelligent and articulate man, vehemently denied the incest charge, reportedly defending himself with such eloquence that he briefly swayed opinion in his favor. However, the outcome of the trial was predetermined. Words spoken in jest. Much of the evidence against Anne revolved around her familiarity with the men, often interpreted from innocent remarks or flirtatious banter, characteristic of courtly love traditions. Anne's vivacious personality and tendency for witty, sometimes provocative conversation were twisted into proof of illicit relationships. For instance, her alleged comment to Norris about him having to wait for dead men's shoes, meaning Henry's, was construed as a desire for the king's death. The trial, a mockery of justice. The trials of Anne Boleyn and her alleged lovers were anything but fair. Speed and secrecy. The entire process from arrest to execution unfolded within a matter of weeks, indicating a clear rush to judgment. Proceedings were shrouded in secrecy, preventing Anne from mounting a proper defense. Lack of due process. Anne was not allowed legal counsel. She was denied the right to cross-examine witnesses, if indeed there were any credible ones beyond Smeaton. The specific dates and locations of the alleged offenses were often vague, making it impossible to provide alibis. Biased judges and jury. The courts were presided over by Anne's enemies, including her uncle, Thomas Howard, Duke of Norfolk, who likely felt immense pressure from the king to secure a conviction. The juries were comprised of men whose fortunes depended on royal favor, making an acquittal virtually unthinkable. The indictments. The indictments themselves were wildly inconsistent, accusing Anne of having relations with each man on multiple, sometimes contradictory dates. This sloppiness further undermines their credibility. Anne Boleyn herself, despite being denied proper legal representation, defended herself with clarity and dignity. She maintained her innocence to the very end, famously stating on the scaffold, "I am come hither to accuse no man, nor to speak anything of that, whereof I am accused as I know not thereof." Don't forget to like and subscribe to help us grow our channel. Motivations. Who stood to gain? The overwhelming modern historical consensus points to a politically motivated frame-up orchestrated by Thomas Cromwell, with the explicit approval and encouragement of King Henry VIII. Henry VIII's desire for a male heir. This was the paramount factor. Anne had failed to produce a son. Henry, desperate for a legitimate male heir to secure the Tudor dynasty, saw Jane Seymour as his last hope. To marry Jane, he needed to be rid of Anne, and a divorce, like with Catherine, would require papal intervention, which was no longer an option. Execution for treason, however, would invalidate their marriage and bastardize Elizabeth, clearing the path for a new queen and new children. Thomas Cromwell's strategic brilliance and ruthlessness. Cromwell, a brilliant but pragmatic statesman, was tasked with solving the Anne Boleyn problem. He understood Henry's absolute will and moved decisively to fulfill it. Fabricating charges of adultery and treason was the quickest and most effective way to eliminate Anne and solidify Henry's control. Cromwell himself would later fall victim to Henry's volatile temperament and be executed. Factional rivalries at court. Anne Boleyn had enemies. Her outspokenness, her Protestant sympathies, and her family's rapid rise had created resentment among the conservative faction at court, who saw her as a threat and longed for a return to traditional Catholic practices. Her downfall was welcomed by many who wished to see her influence and that of her family diminished. The unresolved certainty, why we can't be 100% sure but are close. Despite the overwhelming evidence of a politically engineered plot, the absolute, undeniable certainty of Anne's innocence remains inherently unprovable in a purely legal sense. Lack of counter-evidence from the time. Our understanding relies heavily on interpretations of biased primary sources. Records from the court of Henry VIII are naturally skewed to justify the king's actions. Pro-Anne accounts tend to emerge later, after her daughter Elizabeth I ascended the throne, and may contain their own biases. Intimate knowledge lost to time. The precise details of personal relationships and private conversations are forever lost. We cannot definitively know every interaction Anne had, nor the true intentions behind every word spoken. The nature of Tudor justice. The Tudor justice system was vastly different from modern jurisprudence. Confessions under duress, lack of counsel, and predetermined verdicts were not uncommon, especially in cases of high treason involving the monarch. However, the sheer implausibility of the charges, the convenient timing of the accusations, the lack of credible corroborating evidence beyond coerced confessions, and the clear motivations of Henry VIII and Cromwell all strongly point to a meticulously planned legal murder. The lasting legacy, a woman undone by power. Anne Boleyn's trial and execution stand as a chilling testament to the absolute power of the Tudor monarchy and the ruthless politics of the era. Her story continues to resonate because it speaks to universal themes of ambition, betrayal, love, and injustice. While the intimate details of her private life may forever remain a subject of historical speculation, the prevailing narrative is one of a vibrant, intelligent, and ultimately innocent woman, sacrificed on the altar of a king's desire for a son and unchallenged authority. The debate over her guilt or innocence, a place as one of history's most compelling figures. Don't forget to like and subscribe to help us grow our channel. Thank you for watching, and ring that bell to receive notification on new videos.